The Children's Aid Society was founded in February 1853 by a group of 9 men, including Charles Loring Brace. What's really interesting, though, is that they don't even give you any more information on who these 9 men were. But upon investigation, I have found out that this organization raised substantial funds from the public and also from wealthy philanthropists. These philanthropists include Theodore Roosevelt Sr., John Jacob Astor III, and William Earl Dodge Sr. After these funds were distributed, the society immediately began opening lodging houses for homeless youths. But the real question that's never answered is, why were there so many homeless children at the time? And how did the Children's Aid Society conveniently spring up at the perfect time to swoop in all of these children? The Children's Aid Society is also directly connected to the Orphan train movement. They had many other programs as well, and before public school education, you had the Children's Aid Society laying the groundwork for our future re-education. The Children's Aid Society is actually withholding documentation from the general public that contains our true history of the past and what actually happened with all of these children. The Children's Aid Society is the gatekeepers of our past. I wanted to start off by saying that I have obtained some information through the Children's Aid Society that I had requested, and I had stated this in my last video about Charles Loring Brace. But even the information that they give to the public is vague at best, and you still have to do a lot of digging to find out the real truth. But with that being said, a lot of the documentation is going to be from archives of the Children's Aid Society. So this is all going to be referenced from the New York Historical, and this is the Children's Aid Society records. So as stated in the intro, the Children's Aid Society was founded in 1853, and it's saying that it was founded by a group of 9 men, including Protestant minister Charles Loring Brace. So if you've been watching the videos up until this point, oftentimes they're saying that these men are either Protestant or they're very Christian or religious. But I found out that all of these guys are basically Darwinists, and they had a Darwinistic worldview. But it's stated here that Brace was selected by the group to become the secretary of the new organization. So Charles Loring Brace is the face of the Children's Aid Society, but it's really hard to figure out who else was involved, but they really pushed this Charles Loring Brace guy in the forefront. And this was pretty interesting as well, because it says that the organization raised substantial funds from the public and many wealthy philanthropists, including members of the Roosevelt, Astor, and Dodge families, and immediately began opening lodging houses for homeless youths, as well as industrial schools to teach cobbling, sewing, and many other trades. So the Children's Aid Society was there specifically for the purpose of training up children to be productive members of society. And I am going to reference some of Charles Loring Brace's book, where he mentions some of that as well. But I wanted to start off by looking at Roosevelt. Like I said, you really have to do a lot of digging because they don't just give you the information that you want. So I had to go through several different people just to find the connections that I needed to. And starting off with Roosevelt, I had to go through several just to kind of figure out who it was. And you got to kind of go through the dates of when these guys were born and stuff. But what I came upon was Theodore Roosevelt Sr. And right here on the front, which it doesn't say it in the archives, which is weird that they're hiding his name. But right here, you can see right away that Roosevelt helped found the New York City Children's Aid Society. Related to this, and largely through his initiative, a permanent newsboys lodging house was established. where nightly several hundred stray boys were given a clean bed in a warm room for 5 cents, a fraction of what was charged by the lowest kind of commercial flop house. And the next guy is John Jacob Astor III. And if you go down here to his philanthropy, you can see here, it stated that he donated funds to the Children's Aid Society. But what's weird is that it doesn't say exactly how much. So it tells you he gave 100,000 to St. Luke's Hospital. It says he gave 100,000 to New York Cancer Hospital. It says that he gave 450,000 to the Astor Library and also $50,000 to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So really it's a mystery on how much John Jacob Astor gave to the Children's Aid Society, but at least we have this paper trail that they did give and they were also involved. So for William E. Dodge of the US, I came across this, and this was just kind of like a minor connection, which I can't even read the entire article without subscribing to the New York Times. But right here, this is his wife. Miss W.E. Dodge gives 100,000 for poor boys. Fund will establish Harlem lodging house for them. Work of the Aid Society. Annual meetings shows thousands of friendless lads sheltered or placed in good homes. I didn't read this bottom part, but check this out. A gift of 100,000 to the Children's Aid Society for the establishment of a lodging house for friendless boys in Harlem was announced in the annual report of the society yesterday. The name of the donor was not announced, but it was learned on good authority that it was Miss William E. Dodge who contributed the money. So there you go. Mr. William E. Dodge, with the help of his wife, gave 100,000 to the Children's Aid Society. So the Children's Aid Society took a different route after they stated that they were done with the orphan train movement, because it is stated that through their immigration program that it was actually a social experiment. And so once this social experiment was completed, they needed to continue to influence these young, impressionable children. We'll just read here real quick the evolution of the Children's Aid Society. The mission of the Children's Aid Society changed as the needs of the New York children changed and as the Children's Aid Society developed new ideas about how to best serve them. During the 1920s, the orphan train in its original form slowed to a halt. But the problem of homeless and jobless boys remained urgent, especially during the Great Depression, and boys continued to be placed out as laborers on farms throughout the 1930s. So like I said, they were using these children for labor to start the economy again. A lot of these children were working in the fields, they were working in factories. But my question is how is it that these factories were seemingly already there, but yet they just needed people to fill them and to work them is beyond me. But they obviously didn't have enough adults to do all this, so they got all the children to do it, which in my opinion, there had to have been some sort of a reset where they wiped out all the parents and they kept the children for repopulation. And it stated here that a new emphasis on helping children stay with their families supplanted the goal of transporting children away from the city. So that's where they called the audible and they realized, okay, this social experiment is done. We need to switch it up. Instead of transporting them away from the city, we need to continue to influence these children. So what are we going to do? We're going to provide foster care for them, which the Children's Aid Society is basically the reason why we have our foster care system today. And if you guys have done any research into that system, it is completely corrupt and they're still stealing children from their parents today. Continuing on, it says a foster home and temporary boarding home department was initiated in 1924 and it phased out the immigration placing out department by 1929. So that was in 1929, that's when the orphan train movement stopped. Is 1854 to 1929. It ran for 75 years, which is insane. And check this out. It says the Children's Aid Society closed the last of its industrial schools in 1927, leaving education to the public and parochial school systems, and refashioned the schools as health centers, boys and girls clubs, and community centers. By the 1920s and 30s, the Children's Aid Society began to devote a larger percentage of its resources to African American children. Wonder why? So a quick little timeline here. They give you a chronology. So 1853, Charles Loring Brace and a group of social reformers founded the Children's Aid Society in New York City. Their reasoning was to reduce the incidence of crime, vagrancy, and prostitution. Children's Aid Society opened its first industrial schools and initiated the first free school lunch program in the United States. So that's why I was saying earlier that the public school system was Children's Aid Society, and it just morphed into that once they let everyone take over that. But then you can see that in 1854, they opened the lodging house for the newsboys, which I covered that also in the last video. So by 1864, the Children's Aid Society was running 8 industrial schools. At the industrial school for boys on the East 38th Street, the school schedule included morning schoolwork, simple lunch, and afternoon carpentry class. In 1870 to 1871, 1,945 girls were trained at the sewing machine classes at the girls' lodging house. So they were teaching the boys how to work the fields, and they were teaching the girls how to sew, apparently. In 1876, the Children's Aid Society established its first kindergarten in the 18th Street School. All teachers were licensed by the state or the New York City Board of Education. See, so all this stuff gets deep. It has to deal with educating our children, the public school education, and the Children's Aid Society is also directly connected to all of that as well. So if you look here, by 1899, the Children's Aid Society was operating 19 industrial schools for children. In addition, the Children's Aid Society ran 7 evening schools for older learners housed in the industrial school buildings, as well as a dressmaking, a sewing machine, and typewriting school in the Elizabeth Home for Girls, a print shop for boys, the West Side Industrial School. So they were multiplying pretty quickly. You can see in 1899, they had 19 schools, but back in, 1864, they only had 8. So they more than doubled in, a little over 30 years. But this is where it gets interesting. So if you want to look at the contents of the Children's Aid Society, it stated that the collection consists of the historical records of the Children's Aid Society. The charitable organization was founded in New York in 1853 to aid, educate, and provide lodging for poor children in the city and or to take them in foster homes with employers outside of the city. It's interesting that they say the foster homes were employers. They weren't like their parents or anything. But the flyers and everything, they're saying, oh, we're looking for loving families or whatever. But I don't understand, how are there families in the West, but over in New York where they were getting all these children and sending them out, where were their families? That's something that we're not told. And they say that there was so much poverty, there was a Great Depression, but yet you had all these wealthy philanthropists donating for all of this. It doesn't add up. The records relate to the Children's Aid lodging houses, industrial schools, convalescent homes, health centers, farm schools, and especially the immigration programs, the Orphan train, which operated during the period of 1853 to 1947. So that's new to me, because all of the other information, it says that they stopped in 1929, but right here it says the immigration programs, or the Orphan train, which that's what they called it. They also called it the placing out program, but it stated the collection also includes materials such as minutes and financial report from 1948 to 1970 and annual reports to 2006. So get this, a large portion of the collection consists of case files from the immigration program, which are restricted and need special permission to be viewed. So this right here, the immigration program, that's right there. That's what we need to know about. That's what we want to know about. But look, it's restricted and you can't view it. Materials most represented in the collection are reports, bound volumes, photographs, and correspondence, among other material types. And right here, it says Orphan, Train, and Farm Record Schools. The records of the Children's Aid Society programs, which place children in homes outside of the city, constitute the bulk of the collection. So all of the files that they are holding, it's saying that the Orphan train constitutes the bulk of the collection of these files. These records may be found in series, sorry, I don't know my Roman numerals, box numbers 45 through 971 and volumes 362 through 473. Boxes 56 through 971, guys, that's a lot, are restricted and need special permission to be viewed. Many of the volumes in this series are also restricted. Restricted volumes are noted in the container list. And check this, the boxes that are restricted, the 56 through 971, well, get this, boxes 45 through 971 include the case files and correspondence of foster and adopted children sent to the country and of boys who had completed the Children's Aid Society farm school program and who were then placed on farms for wages. So you think about it, 56 through 971 are restricted and boxes 45 through 971 are basically the files that we want to see. So they give you 11, is that what that is? 45 to 56, 11 boxes that you can look at. And even those really aren't helpful. You can find most of that stuff on Google probably. The case files for both paid and unpaid placements were kept together by the Children's Aid Society. Non-restricted materials in this series include correspondence from children from before the Children's Aid Society began keeping case files, boxes 45 to 55. So like I said, you're allowed that only, which is not much. A small number of broadside pamphlets and reports and some volumes. Other unrestricted material from the Immigration Placing Out program can be found in the photographs in that series, but those are mostly restricted. Children's Aid Society facility records. Although the records of the Placing Out programs constitute the bulk of the collection also includes a substantial amount of material produced by the lodging houses, medical department, and convalescent homes run by the Children's Aid Society, and a smaller amount of material on the industrial schools and camps operated by the Society. Materials related to the Children's Aid Society facilities include narrative registers, which tell the stories of people taken in by the Children's Aid Society, statistical record books, which provide precise intake numbers and data about those who pass through Children's Aid Society facilities, and brochures and pamphlets produced by the Children's Aid Society programs. These materials support research on the lives and experience of poor, immigrant, sick, or homeless children and young men and women in the city from 1853 to 1930s. Like I said, that's the info that we want. So this is very important information here. And I wanted to read this because it's stated that a lot of this material is restricted. But if you look here, it says researchers who wish to view restricted children's files or restricted volumes should contact the library of the New York Historical Society. And get this, these researchers will be referred to a designated specialist from the Children's Aid Society who will interview the potential researcher to determine what he or she may consult and will then supervise the reader's use of the appropriate material. So even if you want to look at this information, you're going to be under strict supervision and you're going to get interviewed and they're going to ask, well, why do you want to know this information? Why is it important for you to know this information? And they'll be looking over your shoulder the entire time. Look at this. Guidelines currently in place for family history research at Children's Aid Society, as determined by legal restrictions on the accessibility of adoption and foster care records, will be followed. Such researchers will follow as well the general registration procedures of the New York Historical Society. Researchers who wish to view open materials will register as manuscript users and be allowed to access the unrestricted materials in the collection. And look at this. Permissions to quote from this collection in a publication must be requested and granted in writing. Please, oh please, can I report this information, right? Researchers will be asked to agree that no names of principals, children, families, etc. will be included in any published material. Send permission requests citing the name of the collection from which you quote to this. So all of this is being gate-kept. Even if someone does read it and they publish something, it's going to be so fluffy and flowery that it's going to be so insignificant. Like I said, you could probably read it from Google. Okay, so this is from Charles Loring Brace's book, and it's called The Dangerous Classes of New York. And I just wanted to point out a few little things that I had read about the orphan train movement. And I just wanted to read a few little things that stood out to me in this book. And right here it says, these boys and girls, it should be remembered, will soon form the great lower class of our city. They will influence elections. They may shape the policy of the city. They will assuredly, if unreclaimed, poison society all around them. They will help to form the great multitude of robbers, thieves, vagrants, and prostitutes who are now such a burden upon the law-respecting community. In one ward alone of the city, the 11th, there were, in 1852, out of 12,000 children between the ages of 5 and 16, only 7,000 who attended school and only 2,500 who went to Sabbath school, leaving 5,000 without the common privileges of education and about 9,000 destitute of public religious influence. So they were wanting to influence all of these children religiously as well, which is really strange in light of these guys' beliefs. In view of these evils, we have formed an association which shall devote itself entirely to this class of vagrant children. Well, isn't he sweet? We do not propose in any way to conflict with existing asylums and institutions. So apparently he wasn't the first, but he became the most prominent somehow. But to render them a hearty cooperation and at the same time to fill a gap which of necessity they all have left. A large multitude of children live in the city who cannot be placed in asylums, and yet who are uncared for and ignorant and vagrant. We propose to give these work and to bring them under religious influence. As means shall come in, it is designed to district the city so that hereafter every ward may have its agent who shall be a friend to the vagrant child. Boys' Sunday meetings have already been formed, which we hope to see extended until every quarter has its place of preaching to boys. With these, we intend to connect industrial schools, where the great temptations to this class arising from want of work may be removed, and where they can learn an honest trade. Arrangements have been made with manufacturers by which, if we have the requisite funds to begin, 500 boys in different localities can be supplied with paying work. So they were looking for laborers. I want you guys to remember that. We hope too, especially to be the means of draining the city of these children by communicating with farmers, manufacturers, or families in the country who may have need of such for employment. There you go, employment again. When homeless boys are found by our agents, we mean to get them homes, so you're kidnapping them, in the families of respectable needy persons in the city and put them in the way of an honest living. So if you notice that it's saying when the homeless boys are found, we get them. That's what it says. And we can close here on this note. Brace states, we soon discovered that if we could train the children of the streets to habits of industry and self-control and neatness, and give them the rudiments of moral and mental education, we need not to trouble ourselves about anything more. A child in any degree educated and disciplined can easily make an honest living in this country. The only occasional exception is with young girls, depending on the needle for support. So like I said earlier, they were teaching the girls how to sew. In as much as the competition here is so severe, but for these, we often were enabled to provide instruction in skilled labor, which supported them easily. And if taught cleanness and habits of order and punctuality, they had no difficulty in securing places as upper servants. Oh, isn't that so nice? You can be an upper servant. Or they soon married into a better class. Yeah, so that's a lot to take in. And we haven't even really scratched the surface. I still want to get into the actual immigration plan. But in this video, we're just discussing how the Children's Aid Society started and how they are also gatekeeping very important information from us. And if we want to obtain that information, we got to jump through a bunch of hoops to do so. And even at that, you're still probably not going to get the information that you're seeking. We're going to continue on this journey. And if you guys haven't yet, I'd suggest you go check out the 2 videos that are going to be suggested to you. One is about the robber barons and the other is about Charles Loring Brace. I hope you guys enjoy that. Stay tuned. We're going to continue on this journey. God bless.
I've lived with kings who stood on my wings, broken my strings, they fell with ease. Swam in my tears, soaked in my fears. What am I fighting for? Will it ever be enough? But when no one's listening, it's when it pulls me in, and I wanna play. What's it gonna take for them not to underestimate? What you see is great, you will never